It's time for Solutions for Seniors to Be, here on WATD. Here to help make your golden years golden, offering guidance on programs and services available to you and your loved ones in your retirement. Now, here's your host, Chris Shea.
Good Sunday morning. This is Chris Shea of BPS Financial Services and Fit to Retire. We're going to be presenting today the Solutions for Seniors to Be and their loved ones. And we have a very unique group of people that I'm going to be introducing you to, and two lovely ladies that are going to be the voices for the remainder of the group. The group is called the Empowered Aging Society. And the first question you're probably going to ask yourself is, what is the Empowered Aging Society? And what is that important to me about? So I'd like to ask Meghan and Melissa, who are here, what is the Empowered Aging Society? How did it all come about? And why should people that are looking to help themselves as seniors to be, or their loved ones that are seniors, care about this group and attend a presentation that you guys have coming up in the near future?
All excellent questions.
Thank you. I try and ask good questions.
So my name is Meghan Fitzpatrick. I work for Amada Senior Care, which offers non-medical home care for people on the South Shore, Cape Cod, Greater Boston, Worcester, pretty much everywhere in Massachusetts at this point. But I've been doing this. We're in the senior care field really since I was 17. I started as a CNA at a nursing home in Rhode Island. The one thing I really have increasingly noticed as I've proudly entered the sandwich generation myself is that even though there's lots of really great resources out there like Melissa and me and Chris and everybody else in the society, there's really not any education for folks. So we get a lot of really, really scary, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like emergency phone calls, and it doesn't need to be that way. And so, the more I get out in the world and meet other great professionals, the more I learned that I'm not the only one that feels that way. So the Empowered Aging Society kind of came about naturally as a bunch of us got together, and we really just want somebody to sort of feel that they can be prepared for aging and kind of change the conversation around getting older. I think there's a lot of like, oh no, I'm getting older and I'm losing this, and people don't want to look at it and they don't want to think about it, and I get that, but it can be a very positive experience, and a lot of that just requires being educated on the like ridiculous amount of resources that are out there, and also kind of teaching people how to avoid the resources out there that aren't really in it for your best interest, because like any other industry, there are people out there that are really just trying to make a buck. The local agencies in this state haven't really been like that, which I love. I'm born here, so I feel like maybe I'm biased, but so yeah, I guess it kind of came about as just a bunch of professionals in some form of senior care arena that are really just in it to help seniors, and I think the best way we can do that is to teach people how to set themselves up and set their parents up, and not have to make it an emergency situation. I mean,
just bringing community partners together, and all of us have the same mission and goal, and that's just to help people age in place, thrive in their own communities, give them access to knowledge, let them know information and referral is available, and that the community partners are coming together and sharing what we do. If I can't help you, I know somebody who can.
So Meghan introduced herself. Melissa, I'll let you introduce yourself. That's okay.
Sorry, I'm Melissa Rosenberg. I work for Oakley Home Access. I have a background in occupational therapy, and I've been doing that for 15 years, and decided that there was a need in this field where we do grab bars, ramps, railings, any modifications that will help to keep people in their own homes. And like Meghan said, we do get a lot of calls where it's an emergency situation. Mom's coming home in 5 days. How do we get a ramp on her house? I mean, that just seems impossible. so our whole mission, we're owned and operated by an occupational therapist. So that was something that really, made me interested in working here, because I knew that they had the same mission as me, and we weren't going to give something to somebody they didn't need. I was able to take what I've learned and what I've been doing and just collect resources, share that with people. They may not necessarily need a modification. Maybe they just need information. Maybe it's not an emergency situation. Maybe they just want to plan ahead. They feel like their health might be declining, or they think, I want to stay in this house for a long time. What can we do to make sure I don't fall and break my hip and end up in a rehab? What can we do so I can continue to garden in my backyard? What can I do to these steps? So we want to go out, give you that information, tell you what we can do for you, and also answer questions on what other people in your area can do for you as well.
Yep, and that's all important stuff. And back it up for 1 second. The title of the presentation coming up this Tuesday will be, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And it's a question, and Melissa, you brought up, we want people to stay in place if it's the right set of circumstances, though, right? Because sometimes it's just not the right thing for the person to do. The home isn't able to be retrofitted to their needs. The home isn't set up in a way in which they'll be able to age effectively and thrive, right. At which point in time, your solution, while it's fantastic for some segment of people, it's completely inappropriate for others. Right. But from what I understand, there's other people in this group that can assist with that.
Right, like our solution is to modify the home and to give you a better chance by decreasing that fall risk, but it needs to also work along with a good home care agency. Or maybe it's something as simple as they don't need a modification. Maybe they, I've had adult children tell me, well, mom doesn't remember to take her own pills, or she can't get up to the second floor, just something simple like that, so we should put her in a nursing home, which just seems kind of silly. Like, let's try to explore all these avenues before we start doing that. But then if it comes to the point where we realize, like, this is important, that maybe she can't stay home anymore, then we talk about those alternatives where they can go.
I think that's the thing that's really exciting and really great about this group of people that we've kind of all come together with the Empowered Aging Society, is there are representatives from, at-home solutions like Melissa and I, and then there's people who work in assisted living facilities, who work for skilled nursing. We have people that, work for visiting doctors. We have, kind of run the gamut of all these different options. Like, honestly, I started in this industry at 17, and I didn't know that home modification, like reversible home modification, was even possible until I met Melissa. And I do this for a living. So
for more than 3 years, right? For more than
3 years, yes. I was doing it before it was cool. But it's kind of exciting because we are all generally just trying to find the right fit for each individual person. Like, every person's different, so every person's aging journey is going to be different. My grandmother, I had one grandmother who stayed in her home until the day she died, and then I had one who had to move to an independent living facility and then into a memory care. And I at the time was already working in this industry, and even with all my resources, it was so overwhelming. So it's exciting to see people kind of coming together and being like, hey, we're going to help you navigate this. It's not about me selling home care. It's about me providing a resource that, it feels very much like if you call one of us, you're going to call all of us. Like, if home care is another great example for like the stay or go. Home care can be a phenomenal option, and for a lot of people it's the best possible option, but it can be cost prohibitive. It doesn't involve the socialization that comes with assisted living facilities or independent living facilities. When it comes to memory care, it can be just not quite enough to make that person's day what they deserve. It's not just about keeping someone alive. It's like, I think the word you used was thrive, which is such a good word. And everybody in this group is really just trying to kind of put all the arrows in in our seniors' quivers and in our families' quivers that they possibly can, so they can make an educated decision about what's best for them, which I think is really
Right.
important for people to know. Like, I'm not going to try and sell you on anything you don't need.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming for a lot of families. Like for us, we get people who say, oh, there's no way that I could afford a stair lift. And they get very overwhelmed, so they call nobody, they do nothing, and then nothing happens, and then mom falls. Like, maybe they don't need the stair lift. Maybe they can move that bedroom to the first floor. Sometimes they have a dining room that's not being used. Just having the knowledge of what each of us do in this group, to be able to share that with them and say, well, you're saying, well, maybe you don't have to leave, you can continue staying home to have health care, but maybe we can have that assessment where when they leave, you know how much things are going to cost, you know what you need, and you know what you don't need. And that way it takes that pressure off of those adult children. Maybe they don't even live in the same state. And then they can kind of take that off their plate and know that they've checked that off. Now they know this is what to expect with that. And then we pass them on to other resources to try to check those off of their list as well.
So in the interest of full disclosure, I'm part of the Empowered Aging Society.
We're all a little biased.
Yeah. However, I came to this a couple of years ago. My mother passed away in March of 2021, and it was quite frankly a disaster. She didn't have COVID, but COVID was what made her passing accelerate, right? She was, as Megan, you said, isolated. There was no socialization. She lived in Hanover. She was a successful realtor for a number of years. She was a member of the community there. But when the major shutdown happened, she became completely isolated, and she kind of knew what some of the resources were, but she was afraid to reach out because her generation, she was in her 70s, asking for help was a sign of weakness. And what I've learned is that when you ask for help, you sometimes get the help you need, and quite frankly, sometimes you deserve that you didn't think you deserved, right? Because as you said earlier, Megan, like, people have this thing about getting older, and it's a negative. Well, you know what? I looked at it as a positive. It's a chance for you to enjoy the last third of your life in the way that you want to, and you should be able to go out and have as much enjoyment as you possibly can, and there are resources to help you make that happen.
Right.
And I just know that for me, it became my mother wasn't getting the help that she deserved because of all she'd done for the community, and she was kind of afraid to ask for it because she didn't know what questions to ask a lot of the times. It was like she didn't cook for herself, but she made too much money for Meals on Wheels, and she didn't qualify for that. And it was COVID, so I couldn't bring food over every single day because I had gotten it, and I was afraid, like, if I get near her and I breathe on her, she's gonna be dead, right? Like, yet it wound up happening anyways. So we didn't know where to turn, and so I started to get involved with a couple senior organizations here on the South Shore, and met a couple of all of you, and like as Megan said, this kind of came out of where we think there's a gap in knowledge and awareness, and where to go for help.
Information and referral. I mean, like your mother, like you're saying, people are, they don't want to ask for help because they don't want to appear weak. They don't want to show that they are aging, and maybe people will think they can't take care of themselves. But I always feel like when you ask questions for help, you're really advocating for your own independence. Like somebody doesn't want to use a walker because they feel like it'll make them look weak, but you're actually saying, I can walk through this mall by myself. Like, I can do this on my own with the assistance of this walker, and people don't want to see it that way. And by putting this together, we're really just giving them, we're letting each other know that we exist, that there's resources out there, but we're also making a safe place for people to tune in and learn what's out there.
Yeah.
And with your mother, I wanted to just mention this with the technology. I did that for many years, where we were setting people up like that had that digital divide, especially with COVID. A lot of agencies received money for technology, and people would be like, oh, you can't teach a 90-year-old how to use an iPad. And I'm going to tell you, that is not true. I taught a 98-year-old how to use an iPad. We gave it to her, and she was able to unlock her door with the iPad to let the CNA in. She was able to order her own food. She would order food with the app. And it took a while. She was frustrated, but she was also desperate. So when you're desperate, you want to learn. And she couldn't believe that she could learn something like that. And that's things that people don't know about because there's not enough of what we have going on right now, right here.
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things, again, I run a program called Fit to Retire, and it looks at retirement in 5 areas: self-identity, social, health and nutrition, personal relationships, and money. Money's the last thing that we look at in this process of getting older, because if you don't have a self-identity, you don't know who you are. If you don't have a social outreach, right? We talked about that a little bit. If you don't have personal relationships, if you're not taking care of your health, whether you have $1 million in the bank, $2 million, or $50, it doesn't matter because you're not enjoying your life, right? So I think that's why I gravitated to working with all of you that are in the Empowered Aging Society, because you all provide the ability for people to actually enjoy their life. And, if you've worked for 30 or 40 years, there's a certain sense of dignity in living the way you want to as you get toward the end of your life, as opposed to having to, be stuck watching Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever it is on TV. That right?
The difference between existing and living.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think it's, we live in just these kind of insanely different times to where our parents and our grandparents were growing up. I think in the ideal world, like, you could move into an in-law apartment with a kid and kind of just, I think that was, especially like my background, we're Italian, and the idea of not just taking care of your own parents in your own home was kind of a shock to it caused some issues when we were moving my grandmother, because it's sort of a culture shock, but we don't live in a world that really allows for that anymore. We folks have to, if you have kids, you probably more than likely have to have both parents working to support the soccer and the ballet and I have nieces and nephews, and I'm like, my goodness, you guys do everything. But you
I got
have
a 12-year-old daughter, I get it.
Yeah, right. So you have to devote a lot of time and energy just to supporting yourself and your family, and you want to have mom or dad, just be able to stay with you. But if you're not home, then they're at home waiting for you to get back, and that's surviving. That's not necessarily living. And so I think the whole way that our society is changing, you kind of have to get creative, and there have been some really wonderful, really creative solutions to all kinds of stuff that comes up with aging to allow people to live in the way that brings them joy. That's the thing about retirement that I think it can be really difficult. Having parents that have recently retired, I know it can be difficult because when you've lived your whole life, I gotta work, I gotta, I gotta live near where I work, and I gotta take care of my kids, and I gotta get a job that affords to take care of the kids and all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, the kids are grown, you're retired, you can live wherever you want. Like, I know from just dealing with my parents with it that it can be overwhelming. And then you have this vast field of, okay, what do I do now? And then, like the technology thing. I recently learned there's a couple councils on aging that offer technology class, which is great because
Most of them do. I used to teach one in Rhode Island, and it was funny because they didn't want to know how to do like high-techy things that we use our phones for. They just wanted to know how to free up space and delete pictures, or how to send a picture of something to their daughter in California. It was just simple little things.
my mom thinks that I should start a tech company with my genius just because I taught her how to put a spam blocker on her email. Like, because
Right.
it's just not, we didn't grow up with it, but
Right.
we it came about early enough in all our lives that we got to learn how to work with it, some better than others.
Well, speak for yourself.
You're better with tech than I am by a long shot. Ooh.
Well, the kids are geniuses. So there's a program. It's actually national. It's called Cyber Seniors, and a lot of college kids, and it's now moved into the high schools. We just recently started doing it with URI, where the kids can get their credits, extra credits, by working with seniors and teaching them how to use their own devices. Because how many times do you hear like one of these adult children gave an iPad to mom, and it's been sitting in the kitchen drawer for 6 months with the plastic still on the screen?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Last night I was with my kids at their grandfather's in a nursing home right now, and he was having trouble with his hands, and he's been in there for 2 weeks, and he's got a cell phone, and he loves Facebook. He hasn't been on Facebook. He's just been so depressed because he's just isolated.
The social connection.
Right. So we managed to, when we were there for 2 hours last night, and when we left, he was able to access everything on his phone with his voice, answer it, make calls. He was able to control. We downloaded the app for the Roku onto the tablet. That was, by the way, the tablet had been in the drawer for the 2 weeks, and it still was in the box with the plastic. So when we left, he was able to, we downloaded the app, so the remote was on there. So he was able to, with gross motor, use that stylus to just change the channel. And he had been watching
Oh, God.
the one channel for
Whatever
like
terrible channel was on there.
for like
Made
2
flashbacks
weeks.
to when I was a kid and all that was the over-the-air things, and I was the one holding the antenna so that the reception would be good for another 5 minutes.
Yes.
So my dad could watch the football game or whatever.
Was the remote on a cord?
No, I was the remote.
You were the remote.
Yeah.
Go up and change the channel. This is before cable. That's why when you said like when we grew up, like I was out of high school when like computers started to come into play. So I'm a little bit older, but that's okay. But to your point, Melissa, about adults and technology and being able to utilize it, I have an aunt. And she's going to hate me for talking about this, but she got married when she was 77 years old. She and her now husband had been living together for a while, and she asked me, like, should we get married? And I was like, yeah, as long as things aren't, rocky, whatever. They wound up getting married because access to doctors. Right? Because they
Yeah.
couldn't access one of the doctors because they weren't married, and they,
Right.
legal documents around that. They're out in Oregon, and it was a challenge. So they just were like, you know what? We're going to not deal with the headaches. We'll get married. He's 73, 74. But I only bring that up because of the technology portion of it. She was bought a smartphone, and this is probably 5 years ago. It's come out of the box,
Oh, okay.
but she's never really used it. And it's not for lack of ability, because she can do a lot of things.
Right.
It's lack of want. Right? So when you talk about people being able to do things as they get older, it's usually not about the ability, because they can learn. Absolutely they can learn. They can learn whatever they want to, but it's about a desire.
And a necessity.
Right. And for her, it wasn't a necessity. She is at home 95% of the time, and she's got her landline, she's got her flip phone, she's got her computer. She doesn't need a smartphone.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't want to learn it. And no matter how much we tried to help her to get her to learn it, she didn't want to. Like, and that was like with my mom. Like, you talked about helping this 98-year-old person help with the technology. She could, again, she was a realtor. She could go on MLS and find whatever she wanted to, but she couldn't click on a link to do a Zoom call
Right.
because she didn't care. That wasn't what she wanted in terms of human interaction. And then that's, again, during the pandemic, it was different because you were forced into the isolation.
Right.
And the lack of socialization is ultimately where the biggest challenge was for her. And I've seen it for a lot of other seniors as well, where they're home alone, but they're just existing. They're not enjoying life. They're just kind of, what am I going to have for lunch? Oh.
The days turn into nights, and the nights turn into days.
Yep.
And it becomes, well, that's why, like, home care is important to me, I think, for, like, family members. I was also a caretaker for my father and other family members. And it's hard. Like, I'm not in the home care field, but I do appreciate that I could be a daughter who gets to come and visit my father instead of going over there, cleaning, organizing, paying, doing all the responsible things that he couldn't do on his own, because I've spent that, and I didn't have the energy after. I have kids, I was in college, I was exhausted, and I'm taking care of him, and I'm doing all of those things he couldn't do. And then he would be like, do you want to watch TV with me? And I'm like, it's 9:30 now, and I'm really tired. But if there was other help in there, that was, we could find money, find a way to pay for it, figure it out, get a good system going. Then when I went over, I could just be his daughter. So that's why I think, it's all about dignity. Just to give them that time, that one-on-one time. So that's why I love that we have this opportunity to participate in this group, because we get to share what we know that seems simple to us.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem simple to other people.
Yeah. So one of the things that you just talked about was the caregiver, the loved one caregiver. And I do presentations for the Alzheimer's Association. A couple weeks ago, I had Jen Hoadley from the Alzheimer's Association on, talking about what their wonderful organization does. And in this presentation I do on Money Matters, one of the statistics that is mind-blowing for me when I first heard it, and everyone else that I share it with, caregivers who are caring for their loved ones and their primary caregivers experience depression and anxiety 44% of the time.
Yeah.
Which means, for those of you that aren't good at math, 4 out of 9 caregivers experience depression and anxiety around caring for their loved ones, which
Unreal.
is crippling.
And in the case of spouses doing the caregiving, they're and I only know this from an Alzheimer's and dementia perspective, but in the case of spouses caring for a loved one with dementia, the spouse is actually statistically more likely to pass than the person with dementia, because, and having gone through it with my own grandmother, I can tell you, I was 27 when my grandmother actually finally moved, and I had gray hair. I had gained probably 70 pounds, and I was not sleeping. I now have bangs and hair dye to cover, because I also got tremendous. I was the first person I knew in my age group to get wrinkles, just from from the stress it puts on you, and it didn't have to be that way, So yeah, I think it's a huge piece to just have one person, just even if you just call one of us, to know that you're connected to all of us. And that we can help you find the solution that works for everyone, because it isn't just happening to one person.
Yep.
It's happening to everyone.
Yeah, hopefully. So if you want to find more about this, or even attend the presentation on Tuesday, go to the WATD website, look up Chris Shea, BPS, Fit to Retire. There's a link on the website to have you sign up to the meetup, and hopefully you'll be able to join virtually. And be able to get some assistance from Meghan, Melissa, myself, or any of the other professionals that are going to be on there. But this has been great. Thank you, Meghan and Melissa, for hopefully helping a lot of the people here on the South Shore get better at getting older.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you, Chris, for doing this. And participating in this.
You're very welcome.
He's a powerhouse of the group for sure. He's a huge help. I think we'd have all fallen apart without him.
Well, we'll see. Thanks much. We'll talk to you. Bye.
Thanks.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I done said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line. I've been on the right trail, but I must have used the wrong car. Head is in a bad place, and I wonder what's good for. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. My head is in a bad place, but I'm having such a good time. I've been running, trying to get hung up in my mind. Just got to give myself a good talking to this time. Just need a little brain salad surgery. I got to cure my insecurity. That I've been in the wrong place, but it must have been the right time. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong song. I've been in the right vein, but it seems like a wrong on. Cause I've been in the right world, but it seems like the wrong, 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 wrong. Slipping, dodging, sneaking, peeping, hiding out down the street. See my life shaking with every who I meet. Refried confusion as I'm making itself clear. Wonder which way do I go to get on out of here. Cause I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. And I done said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line.